Archivist Kellen pressed his thin blue fingers against the data crystal and watched it glow to life. The records within were old, some of the oldest in the entire galactic archives. He had spent 300 cycles studying the rise and fall of species across the galaxy, but the file before him was different. It was marked with 17 priority seals. The label read simply, Human Survival Patterns Classification, Unexplained. Kellen's species, the Vorath, were known for their excellent memories and their love of knowledge. They lived for nearly 2,000 cycles, but even with all his years of study, Kellen had never understood the humans. No one did. He opened the first record and began to read. The story started on a small station called Outpost 7, located at the edge of the Drift Nebula. It was a mining station, built by the Krethian Trade Consortium to extract rare metals from nearby asteroids. The station held about 3,000 workers from 12 different species. Among them were 47 humans, the smallest group. The Krethians were large beings with thick gray skin and 4 powerful arms. They had built their empire through strength and industry. They looked at the small human workers with something between pity and confusion. "Why do you accept them on the station?" a young Krethian manager asked his supervisor one day. "They are weak. They cannot lift half of what we can." The supervisor, an older Krethian named Grath, made a sound like grinding rocks. This was the Krethian version of a laugh. "The humans are cheap. They work for less pay because no one else will hire them, and they are good at fitting into small spaces." Among the human workers was a woman named Sarah Chen. She was 32 years old, small even by human standards. With black hair she kept tied back and dark eyes that seemed to notice everything. Sarah had been on Outpost 7 for 2 years. Before that, she had worked on mining stations across 3 different systems. She worked in the maintenance section, crawling through pipes and tunnels to fix problems that the larger species could not reach. The work was hard and sometimes dangerous, but Sarah did not complain. Her friend Marcus worked beside her most days. Marcus was taller than Sarah, with brown skin and a gap between his front teeth that showed when he smiled. "You ever think about going home?" Marcus asked one day as they crawled through a ventilation shaft. Sarah thought about this for a moment. "No, there is nothing for me there anymore." What Sarah did not say was that she had been watching the station carefully for 2 years. She noticed that the Krethians cut corners on safety. She noticed that the emergency systems were old and poorly maintained. She noticed that the escape pods had not been tested in years. Sarah kept these observations to herself, but she also made plans. It was how she had survived this long. 3 weeks later, the disaster came. It started with a small tremor, hardly noticeable. Then came the second tremor. This one was stronger. Then the alarms started. "Warning, hull breach in Sector 12. All personnel evacuate to emergency stations." For a moment everyone froze. Then chaos erupted. The Krethians moved first, their 4 arms pushing aside anyone in their way as they rushed toward the doors. They crowded together, blocking the exits, fighting each other to get through. Sarah did not move. She stood very still and watched the panic around her. Her mind was working quickly, sorting through everything she knew about the station. Marcus appeared at her side. "Sarah, we need to go." "Not to the pods," Sarah said. "What? That is where everyone is going." "Exactly. The pods are broken. Half of them will not launch. I have seen the maintenance reports." Marcus stared at her. "Then what do we do?" Sarah grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a side door. "We survive. Follow me." She led Marcus through a series of maintenance tunnels that she had memorized over 2 years. These tunnels were too small for Krethians, too confusing for most other species. But Sarah knew every turn. "Where are we going?" Marcus asked as they crawled. "The old cargo bay in Sector 9. It was sealed off years ago after a fire, but there is an old shuttle that was never removed. If we can get it working, we have a chance. They reached the cargo bay. The shuttle was old, at least 50 years outdated. Its hull was scratched and dented. "Can you fly it?" Marcus asked. "I can try." They climbed inside. The power was dead. Sarah remembered there was a manual override. They worked together, opening panels, reconnecting wires, manually triggering the ignition sequence. It was work that should have taken a team of engineers several hours. They did it in 20 minutes. The shuttle hummed to life. Sarah angled the shuttle toward the weakest section of the wall and fired the emergency thrusters. The wall exploded outward, and then they were free, flying into the dark of space. Behind them, Outpost 7 was breaking apart. "How did you know?" Marcus asked quietly. "How did you know about the cargo bay, the shuttle, all of it?" Sarah kept her eyes on the controls. "I watched, I learned, I planned. It is what humans do. Other species do not do this. Some do, but not like us. We have to. We are not the strongest or the fastest. All we have is our ability to adapt, to learn, to prepare. It is how we survive." They flew toward the nearest station, 3 days away. They had enough fuel, barely. They had enough air, barely. But they were alive. Archivist Kellen paused in his reading. He made a note in his research journal: "Human survival in Outpost 7 disaster. Of 47 humans present, 43 survived. Station average survival rate, 34%. Human survival rate, 91%. He opened the next file. The second record took place on a world called Verdant III, a jungle planet in the outer reaches. 200 cycles after the Outpost 7 disaster, humans had spread to hundreds of worlds. On Verdant III, a human colony of 5,000 had been established. The colony was called New Jakarta. The humans had built their homes in the trees, using the forest itself as their protection against the dangerous creatures below. The planet was home to predators that made Earth's deadliest animals seem like pets. There were the razor-tails, massive reptiles with bladed tails. There were the skypiercers, flying hunters with wingspans of 20 meters. And there were the crawlers, insectoid swarms that stripped flesh from bone in seconds. The Galactic Council had warned the humans not to settle there. But the humans went anyway, because the land was cheap and no one else wanted it. Dr. James Okonkwo was the head of colonial medicine in New Jakarta. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and kind eyes. He had been a doctor on Earth before the expansion, working in refugee camps and disaster zones. "Another razor-tail attack," his assistant Lynn said as she entered the medical center. 3 injured, 1 critical. The critical case was a young man named Paulo. His left arm was mostly gone. James worked quickly, stopping the bleeding and stabilizing Paulo's vital signs. 3 hours later, Paulo was stable. He would live. "How do you stay so calm?" Lynn asked. James smiled tiredly. "Practice, experience, and the knowledge that panicking helps no one." New Jakarta had changed much in the 10 years since its founding. Many had died in the early years, but the survivors had learned. They had learned which plants were safe. They had learned the hunting patterns of the razor-tails. They had adapted. But their greatest adaptation was not physical. It was mental. They did not see the jungle as an enemy to be conquered. They saw it as a partner to be understood. 2 months later, a Krethian military transport crashed in the jungle. The survivors were trapped, and rescue would take weeks. James called a meeting of the colony council. "We should help them," he said. The council members looked at him with surprise. The Krethians had never shown kindness to humans. "They will die without our help," James continued. "The jungle will kill them." "That is their problem," said Maria, the head of security. "They think they are better than us." But James shook his head. "We are better than this. We help people, even people who have hurt us. It is who we are." The council voted to send a rescue team. James would lead it. The journey took 3 days. When they found the crash site, it was carnage. The Krethian survivors had tried to defend themselves with military equipment, but it was failing. And the crawlers were coming. The Krethian leader, Commander Grax, demanded to know who they were. "Rescue," James said. "We are here to help." Grax laughed. "Humans, you expect us to trust humans. You can trust us or you can die. Your choice." Survival won over pride. James led them through the jungle, marking safe routes and avoiding predator territories. The Krethians were large and clumsy in the dense forest, but James was patient. He explained and demonstrated. And slowly, the Krethians learned. On the 5th day, they reached New Jakarta. Commander Grax approached James afterward. "Why did you do this? We have never been kind to your people." "Because it was the right thing to do, and because maybe now you will understand something." "What?" "That strength is not just about muscles and weapons. It is about heart, about mind, about the willingness to adapt." Grax slowly bowed his head, a gesture of respect that Krethians rarely gave to anyone. "I will remember this. My people will remember." Kellen closed the second record and made more notes. The pattern was becoming clear. The third record was set on Unity, the largest diplomatic center in the galaxy. It orbited a neutral star at the intersection of 7 major trade routes. Every species in the Galactic Council had representatives there. And now it was falling apart. Someone had uploaded a virus into Unity's central computer. Within hours, the station systems began to fail. Life support flickered. Gravity generators malfunctioned. Communication networks went dark. The station held 8 million inhabitants. Without help, they would all die. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was human, one of only 3 human diplomats on the entire station. She was 54 years old, with silver-streaked hair and a calm voice that never seemed to waver. "The virus is adaptive," reported her aide Yuki. "Every time we try to isolate it, it changes form." Elena thought. Around her, the other diplomats were panicking. Only Elena was calm. Only Elena was thinking. "The secondary systems are isolated from the main network," she said slowly. "We disconnect everything and connect it to the secondaries. That would take thousands of people working together. Then we get thousands of people." Elena laid out her strategy. The station was divided into sectors, each sector into zones, each zone into blocks. Every block would have a team leader. It was a human system, developed over thousands of years of managing disasters on Earth. "We have 12 hours before life support fails completely," Elena said. "Let us begin." The work started immediately. Beings of every species put aside their differences and focused on survival. Krethians used their strength to move heavy equipment. Velish crawled into tight spaces to make delicate repairs. And humans coordinated everything. At hour 6, the Velish sector lost all power. 300,000 Velish were trapped, slowly suffocating. A young human engineer named David talked the Velish through the repairs themselves, step by step. 3 hours later, the power came back on. The Velish survived. At hour 10, the Moreth section's gravity generator was failing. A Krethian firefighter named Torx volunteered to cross a wall of fire to reach the generator. "You will be badly burned," Elena warned him. Torx looked at the flames. "The Moreth helped my brother once. Now I choose to help them." He walked into the fire. The humans worked as fast as they could. 9 minutes and 47 seconds later, the generator stabilized. Torx emerged, his skin blackened, but he was alive. The Moreth survived. At hour 11 and 59 minutes, after a coordinated strike against the trapped virus, it died. Unity Station survived. The Krethian ambassador came to Elena afterward. "You saved us all." "We all saved each other." "No, you adapted." Elena turned to face him. "It is how we survive. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, just our ability to learn and change and grow. The fourth record took Kellen to Terminus, a frozen planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was the most distant human settlement. The colony had been established 70 years ago. Elder Maya Kim was 112 years old, kept alive by cold-adapted medicines her colony had developed. "We lost half our people in the first winter," she told the young ones. "But we learned from the planet. We watched how the native creatures survived. We adapted." The native creatures, which the humans named glacians, were intelligent beings that communicated through patterns in the ice. When the humans finally made contact, everything changed. Over 70 years, the two species became partners. 3 years before Kellen read these records, a mining corporation arrived to claim Terminus. Their leader, a human named Marcus Cole, had abandoned his species' values in pursuit of wealth. "This planet belongs to stellar extraction now," Cole announced. "The colonists will be relocated. The natives will be removed." The colonists refused to leave. Elder Maya led the resistance. They used their knowledge of the planet to sabotage mining operations. The glacians helped, moving through ice as easily as humans moved through air. Cole responded with force, but you cannot hunt what you cannot find. Finally, Cole ordered the deployment of a thermal weapon to melt the ice caps. It would kill the largest community of glacians on Terminus. The colonists learned of the plan. Maya called a council. "We cannot fight them directly," she said, "but we can expose them." A young colonist named Sarah Chen, descendant of the Sarah Chen who had survived Outpost 7, stepped forward. "I can get a message out. We flood the galaxy with the truth." On the day Cole activated his weapon, the colonists activated their transmitters. The message went out to every corner of the galaxy. Ships arrived from dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council sent investigators. Marcus Cole was arrested, his weapon was dismantled, and Terminus was saved. The Galactic Council officially recognized Terminus as the first joint human-alien territory in history. At Maya's funeral, a Glacian elder spoke. "Maya Kim taught us that strength is not about power, it is about persistence, it is about change." Sarah Chen spoke next. "My ancestor survived a space station disaster by paying attention. My grandmother survived a jungle planet by understanding her environment. My mother survived Unity Station by organizing others. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy, but we adapt. That is our legacy." The fifth record was not about a disaster, it was about a celebration. 1,000 years after humans first left Earth, the galaxy gathered on a world called Harmony. The occasion was the Millennium Summit. The keynote speaker was Zara Chenakonkwo Kim. Her lineage traced back through generations of survivors. "When humans first entered the galactic community," she began, "we were considered weak. Many believed we would not survive, but we did, not through strength or power, but through adaptation." Images appeared on screens throughout the venue. Outpost 7, the escape through the maintenance tunnels. Verdant III, the jungle colony. Unity Station, Terminus. These are not just stories, they are lessons. Survival is not about being the best, it is about being flexible. It is not about defeating others, it is about helping them. A Crethian named Torx III, grandson of the firefighter, told her about his family's history with humans. "My grandfather always said that humans taught him what true strength was, the strength of heart." Near the end of the celebration, Archivist Kellen approached Zara on a balcony. "For 300 cycles I have studied your species," he said, "and I still do not fully understand you." Zara smiled. "We do not fully understand ourselves. That is part of our strength. We are always questioning, always searching. We do not assume we have all the answers. Most species believe they are the center of the universe, but humans. We know we are small. We know we are weak. But we also know that small and weak can become large and strong, given time and effort and the willingness to change. That is what the records show. Again and again, humans face impossible situations and find ways to survive. "It is all we have," Zara said simply, "and it is enough." "Will you share your records?" Zara asked. "Will you let others see what you have learned?" "I already have. The document is being distributed now. I have titled it, 'Why We Should Not Underestimate Humanity, a Study in Adaptation.'" Kellen turned to face her fully. His ancient eyes held wisdom earned over centuries. Humanity is not a weak species pretending to be strong. Humanity is an adaptive species, and that adaptation is the greatest strength in the universe. Empires built on power will eventually fall, but a species that can change, that can learn from anything and anyone, that species will last forever. Zara nodded. Our ancestors knew this. They survived because they refused to give up, refused to accept that their limitations defined them. On the final day of the summit, a ceremony was held to honor those who had helped humanity survive its first millennium in space. Holograms of the great survivors appeared. Sarah Chen, James Okonkwo, Elena Vasquez, Maya Kim, and thousands of others. Zara gave the final words. "We do not celebrate these individuals because they were special. We celebrate them because they were ordinary. They were humans like any others, facing challenges that seemed impossible, but they did not give up. They adapted. They survived. And because of them, we are here." She looked at the assembled beings, representatives of a galaxy united. The universe is vast and dangerous. There will always be new challenges. But if we remember the lessons of those who came before, if we stay flexible and willing to change, if we work together instead of apart, we will survive them all. That is the human way. That is our gift to the galaxy. That is our promise to the future. An archivist, Kellen returned to his archives, where he would spend the rest of his long life recording more stories, more evidence of the truth he had discovered. Galactic records show that humans survive through adaptation, not superior strength or technology or numbers. They survive because they change, because they learn, because they never stop trying to become better. And in a universe full of dangers, that might be the most powerful ability of all.